So Kedushas Peres Shvius has many aspects. And when I started teaching Hilchos Shvius, fundamentally we're dealing with two different categories, two different principles. Number one is Shvisas Oretz. And we had two shiurim, I think, or three, I don't recall, on Shvisas Oretz. Isur Avoida Sa'oretz. The land needs to rest. And the other aspect, the other category, the other field is Kedushas HaPeres. And what we're dealing with today is there a mitzvah to eat Peres Shvius? So the psukim, last week we started off this year with the psukim, Parshas Bahar. V'hoiso Shabbos ha'oretz lachem la'ochalo. Wouldn't that be clear that there is a mitzvah to eat Peres Shvius? It's not only in Parshas Bahar, in Parshas Mishpotim, v'ochlo evyoinei amecho. But the Rambam in Sefer HaMitzvahs does not bring the mitzvah of Achilas Peres Shvius. V'haloi dovahu. Why doesn't the Rambam bring the mitzvah? And you all are familiar with the basic structure, Sefer HaMitzvahs. So the Bar Plukta of the Rambam in Mishnah Torah is the Ravid. The Bar Plukta of the Rambam in Sefer HaMitzvahs is the Ramban. And the Ramban has a sugas on many of the Taryag mitzvahs according to the Rambam's interpretation. And at the end of mitzvahs asay, and once again at the end of mitzvahs lo ta'aseh, the Ramban has the list of mitzvahs which, according to his opinion, the Rambam omitted without justification. And the Ramban says there are many mitzvahs that are part of the minyan, and for some reason, the Rambam didn't bring them. So the Ramban adds on many mitzvahs that belong in the list, and the Rambam, for some reason, omitted them. And kenegdom, the Ramban subtracts some mitzvahs that the Rambam did bring. Mitzvahs asay gimel. Could we please have it on our screen? Mitzvahs asay gimel, the mitzvahs sheshochach HaRav. So the Ramban, mitzvah shlishis, mitzvah gimel that the Rambam skipped. Shomra Torah beperes shvius v'hoisu Shabbos os lachem la'achalo. ודורשו לאכלו ולא לסחרו, וזה כבר מספיירו, כי נאמרים בפרק כך, נמצא פריה וחוי פרש שביעס. So, two different approaches regarding Shittas Ramban. So the Ramban definitely writes, why did the Rambam skip the mitzvah of a hoisu Shabbos os lachem la'achalo? Megillas Esther. So the Ramban is the Rambam's Bar Plukta. And instead of the Maggid Mishnah and the Kesef Mishnah and the Lechem Mishnah, who stand at the Rambam's side to be miyashiv the Rambam in Mishnah Torah, we have the Megillas Esther in Sefer HaMitzvahs. The understanding of the Megillas Esther is that yes, there is a mitzvah asay to eat Peres Shvius. And that is the understanding of the Megillas Esther, that according to the Ramban, there is a mitzvah to eat Peres Shvius. And the Megillas Esther is not the first, the Tashbetz. So one of the later Rishonim that also writes Sefer HaMitzvahs is Zohar HaRakia of the Tashbetz. The Tashbetz and Zohar HaRakia, the Megillas Esther, the Charedim, Sefer HaCharedim, Rabbi Elazar Askari, was 500 years ago in Tzvat, and Maharit Al-Ghazi, Hilchos Chalel Ramban Perik Beis. These four Gedolei Yisrael, different ages, different places, Gedolei Sfarad, Ashkenaz, their interpretation, their understanding of the Ramban is there's a mitzvah to say to eat Peres Shvius. However, the Chazon Ish has a different approach. And let's have a look again at the Ramban. We have it on our screen. We have it on our screen right now, the Chazon Ish notes. So the Ramban writes, so according to the Ramban, or according to the Chazon Ish, what the Ramban means is alav abo machlal say. There is no mitzvah to say to eat Peres Shvius. There is a prohibition to do schayra bePeres Shvius. And that is what the Ramban argues against the Rambam. Why didn't the Rambam bring the mitzvah of la'achla v'lo l'schayra? And obviously, he has a tremendous argument. When we look at the Ramban once again, mitzvah shlishis she'amru Torah bePeres Shvius lois ha'shabzos kanachla. And then he goes into details of his schayra. He brings the Gemara with the Zohar Samach Beis Oser Froya Choyve bePeres Shvius v'chem b'mkol misrabem min haTalmud liyochla v'lo l'schayra. So according to the Chazon Ish, there is no mitzvahs asay to eat Peres Shvius. All that Ramban means is a prohibition. But then we have another problem. L'yochla v'lo l'schayra, as the Ramban justly quotes about the Zohar Samach Beis, but in Pesachim Nun Beis we find two droshes: la'achla v'lo lehefsid, la'achla v'lo l'schayra. So why does the Ramban only bring la'achla v'lo l'schayra and doesn't bring la'achla v'lo lehefsid, which is another drosha from the same pasuk? So historically, this is an interesting comment. Megillah Esther, Zohar Arokia, Charedim, Marit al-Gazi. This spans a period of 300 years. The Tashbitz was 600 years ago. Marit al-Gazi was 200 years ago, actually 400 years. But Gedolim of our time, and I'm just quoting three important sources. Chazon Ish, Hilchos, Shvius, Siman Yud Daled Ois Yud, the Ridvaz. The Ridvaz was the Rav in Tzvas. He came from Lithuania to Tzvas. He was an amazing gadol, very fascinating, interesting personality, very volatile. But the biography of the Ridvaz is not our topic today. Maybe at another opportunity we'll speak about this a bit. The Ridvaz, Hilchos Shmitta v'Yever Perikei Alocha Aleph. Rav Moshe Kliers was a Slanam Chosid. He was a gadol b'Yisrael. He lived in Tveria, and he wrote one of the most important Sforim on mitzvahs atluyas b'oretz, Torah Oretz, the Moshe Kliers. Periches, Semen Chofei, or Ois Chofei. These three gedolim were contemporaries, gedolim of our time, and they all maintain, same as the Chazon Ish. All the Ramban means is la'achla v'lo l'schayra, but actually there is no mitzvahs asay to eat Peres Shvius. One of the most powerful arguments that there is a mitzvah to eat Peres Shvius is a Yerushalmi, Daf Chav Hei Omed Aleph, in Masechet Shvius. And I quote the Yerushalmi, Ein mechayven oisay lechol pas she'ipsho knuvas yerek tafshel sheneskalkel tzorosoi. So the Yerushalmi says, we're not machayev a person. A person is not obliged to eat pas she'ipsho, bread that was, what do you say?
Excuse me, Pesach, please put up the Yerushalmi. Thank you.
Pas she'ipsho, bread that is ruined, that is spoiled. Knuvas yerek, vegetable peels, tafshel, sheneskalkel tzorosoi, ein machayven oisoy lecho. So the Mishnah says, Shvius nitno la'achila v'l'shtiya v'l'sicha, keitzad lecho, lecho, ein machayven oisoy lecho, loy pas she'ipsho, loy knuvas yerek, loy tafshel neskalkel tzorosoi. So, ein machayven oisoy lecho, food that is not fitting for consumption. Mashma, that proper food, that's a u'ila achila, machayven oisoy lecho. So this proves there is a mitzvah. And those gedolim that maintain the kavanah of the Ramban is that there is a mitzvah, the Ramban doesn't bring this raya, but l'chayri could prove his shit from the Yerushalmi. But then that's a gevaldige kash on the Rambam. So if the Yerushalmi does clearly prove there's a mitzvah to eat Peres Shvius, so why is the Rambam omit this mitzvah? I have a very important comment. I think even according to the Megillah says that there is a mitzvah to eat Peres Shvius, it definitely cannot be defined as a chiyuv. And I'll explain to you why. Any chiyuv achila must be confined or to a certain time or to a certain chefza. In most cases, it is a combination of chefza and time. Chilas kochim, besara korban, or menachos, and you have a certain time. This is the chefza that you need to consume, and this is your time limit. Matzah, belela seder. Chilas kazayas pasan sukkah, first night of Yom Tov. Those are chiyuvim. When there is no limited specific chefza, and there is no time, it cannot be a chiyuv. And I'll give an example. Truma, kohen ba'achilas truma. Is it a mitzvah? The Rambam clearly says yes. Because the last Rambam and Hilchos Trumas, it is the last halacha in Perek Tes Vav of Hilchos Trumas, the Rambam writes, kohen she'ochel truma mevorach asher kiddushoni b'kiddushosoi shel HaRav v'tzivono l'echol truma. So achilas truma is a mitzvah. Is it a chiyuv? No, it cannot be a chiyuv. Because there is so much truma, and there's no specific kohen that is mechuyev to eat all that truma. It's not a specific chefza, and there is no time. So when there's no time framework, and there's no specific chefza, it could only be a mitzvah, cannot be a chiyuv. A kohen that eats truma is mekayim a mitzvah, and that is why he says a bracha. A kohen that does not eat truma is not mevatel a mitzvah. The same would apply to achilas Peres Shvius. So even according to those commentators, Bavonis HaRamban, that achilas Peres Truma is, achilas Peres Shvius is a mitzvah, cannot be a chiyuv. So who exactly has the chiyuv? What exactly does he need to eat? And when exactly does he need to eat it? There's no specific person, no specific Peres. All the Peres and that's all, like all the Trumas, that cannot be a chiyuv. And therefore, even if we do maintain there's a mitzvah to eat Peres Shvius, we still have a problem with the formula, the wording of the Yerushalmi, ein mechayven oisoi lechol, pashev sheknu v'siyeret, tafsher sheniskalkel serosoi, ein mechayven oisoi. That means other Peres that are kodesh b'kedush Shvius can mechayven oisoi. I just explained it cannot be a chiyuv, it's never a chiyuv. And therefore, we need an explanation to understand the Yerushalmi, not only according to the Rambam, according to the Ramban as well. Not only according to the Chazon Ish understanding of the Ramban that there is no mitzvah, even according to the Megillah says understanding of the Ramban that it is a mitzvah. It's still not a chiyuv. So how would we understand the lashon of the Yerushalmi? Ein machayven oiseh lechol pas she'ipshu. So one interpretation would be have emine shetzorach lechol pas she'ipshu kedei shelo lagia ledei hefsed. Because if he doesn't eat pas she'ipshu, lo achlo v'lo lehefsed. And some achronim offer this explanation in the Yerushalmi to b'miyashev shittas Rambam. It's not a mitzvah. So what's the havamina? What's the Revu saying? Mechayven oisoi. Havamina that he needs to eat shelo yagia ledei hefsed. That is totally unreasonable because Shuvas Maharit Chelek Aleph Siman Pei Gimel, the Maharit claims there's only an issur if a person is mafsid Peres Shvius biyodayim. Groma is not an issur. If there is no issur to be goyrem hefsid, kal v'choymer ben benoy shel kal v'choymer, that there is no chiyuv to be moinea hefsid. So once again, how do we understand the din ein mechayven oisalecha? The Chazon Ish, Yud Alad Yud, is aware of the Yerushalmi. And he offers an interpretation that is also a doichik otsu, very difficult to accept. The Chazon Ish's approach, he explains Yerushalmi, Ein Machai v'Noisei doesn't mean we have a hava minute that a person would need to eat, but rather we do not relate to spoiled food as if it is machal odom. And if we would relate and define spoiled food, as if it is machal odom, it would be osel hachal behema. So the Yerushalmi means to say, you could give to animals to eat because it's no longer fitting for people, for men, and therefore it's defined as machal behema. And that is what the Yerushalmi means. We do not define these spoiled foods as if they were machal odom. We need to be mufas Yerushalmi kepashtus l'shaynai ein machayven oisay lechol. It is so unreasonable to say pshat. No, there's no hava minute that he has a chiyuv to eat. We just mean it's not defined and considered machal adam, and therefore it's mutar la'achal abayim. Orcha Shulchan. Most Lamdanim are familiar with the Orcha Shulchan. The Orcha Shulchan was an amazing God with a Mechal Epstein, the Ruvav and Avadi, and his Seifers and Dalat Shulchan. But very few people are familiar with the Orcha Shulchan Osid. He wrote an equivalent Sefer, the future Orcha Shulchan, and Kodshim Zeruim Dahas. And I think you see as godless more in that Sefer than in the Orcha Shulchan and Dalat Shulchan. So in Shmitta v'Yovel, Pelik Chav Daled Se'i Vav, the Orcha Shulchan's interpretation is a very pashut one. That is the Ravus of the Yerushalmi, that there is no chiyuv and no mitzvah to eat Perish Shvius, and therefore ein machayven oisei lechol pas she'ipsha. This pshat also has a tremendous daichik. If the Ravus is there's no mitzvah to eat Perish Shvius, why do Chazal teach us this halacha with spoiled food and not with proper food? So why would the Yerushalmi say ein machayven oisei lechol pas she'ipsha? If the Ravus is there is no mitzvah, then Chazal probably would prefer to explain ein machayven oisei lechol perish shvius. So let me share with you my machshava. I just want to make another comment. We find this exactly same lashon, ein machayven oisei lechol pas she'ipsha, knuvas yeret, in another source in the Yerushalmi, and that is Maser Sheni Tesel and Dalaf. I've been learning a lot of Yerushalmi all these years, and in Bali it's very hard to find something that the Achronim didn't see. But in Yerushalmi it's more common because many great Achronim didn't really learn a lot of Yerushalmi. So we find exactly the same lashon in Masechet Maser Sheni Tesel and Dalaf. And everybody agrees that Achilas Maser Sheni definitely is a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah to say that it's brought in all Sifra mitzvahs. The mitzvah of Maser Sheni is you need to bring it up to Yerushalayim, and we eat Maser Sheni Yerushalayim, Laman Tilmid Liyiros Hashem Elokecha, and we find the same lashon there. So it would be reasonable to assume that ein machayven oisei lechol is associated with a mitzvah. A person has a mitzvah, however, the mitzvah only applies to food that is fitting for consumption. Food that is spoiled, there is no mitzvah. We have a problem with the lashon ein machayven oisei, which would indicate that it's a chiyuv. So b'doichik, one could still argue ein machayven oisei means it's not even a midas chasidus. It's not even a mitzvah. We know that it's not a chiyuv, but it still would be a mitzvah. and definitely a midas chasidus, a person should make an effort to be mekayim this mitzvah. Yes, but that is only when it's fitting for consumption. So I think that the fact we'll find the same lashon in Maaseh Sheni would indicate that this is associated with mitzvah. But let me make an additional comment how I would explain the Yerushalmi, and I think it's extremely reasonable and appealing. The common denominator between Pas She'ipsho, Knuvas Yeret, and Tafshel Shenaskal Kol Sorosai, these foodstuffs are spoiled because of Masa Yedei Odom. It is only what we did with the raw materials that caused them to have the tendency to become rotten and decomposed so fast. Grain lasts much longer than bread or cake. Vegetables that are whole last longer than vegetable peels that either rot or dry out very fast. And raw foods have a much longer shelf life than cooked food. That would be the havamina that we need to consume and eat. Pas she'ipshe knuvas yerek and tafshel shenaskal kol sorosai. Otherwise, maybe we would be defined as mafsid biyodayim. If you wouldn't peel these vegetables, they wouldn't rot. If you wouldn't crush the grain and do lisha and afiyah, and you wouldn't take grain and turn it into bread or cake, it wouldn't rot. If you wouldn't cook those foods, they would last much longer. So it is actually what you did with these foodstuffs that caused them to be, the cause hefsed, and therefore the havana would be, we are defined as mafsed biyodayim if we don't consume and eat. Knuvas yerek, tafshel shenaskal kol sorosai, and pas she'ipsho. Kumashmalan, that is not the right way to see it. When we peel the yerokas, when we cook the food, when we bake the bread, our intention was legitimate, to consume, to eat. So even if b'di'evet, we did not finish the bread, we didn't finish the cooked food, we left some vegetable peels that we did not consume, that would not be defined as hefsed, and therefore, ein mechayven oisoi lechoil. That would be my interpretation. And I think it's very appealing. And Messiah Shabbat and very reasonable. The Havamina would be, we are the ones that caused this food to become spoiled, and therefore the Havamina would be, we bear responsibility to eat before it becomes spoiled. Kamashmalan, that is not defined as hefsed. Whatever you do, kederach hu olam, kederach b'nei olam, to prepare food for consumption, would not be defined as hefsed. Now I want to come back to the fundamental question with which we began today's shir. Is there a mitzvah to eat peiros shvius? So the Rambam omits this mitzvah. It's not in the Sefer Mitzvahs of the Rambam. The Ramban puts it in, but then we have the big machlokes. How do we understand the Ramban? Does the Ramban actually mean the mitzvah to eat peiros shvius, or all he means, according to one of the Chazon Ish, is li'achlo v'lo l'schayro, and not la'achlo proper, just mitzvahs achila? Let me share with you my opinion, which is somewhat a pshora between the two fundamental understandings. Some say there's no mitzvah at all. Others say mitzvahs asay. My argument is somewhat of a compromise. My talmidim of many years and people that learn my svarim know that one of the biggest yesodot in Torah Shabbat Peh in my understanding, is the Rotzain HaTorah. There are many mitzvahs that are not in the list of Taryag mitzvahs, but they're still defined as the Retzain Hashem, V'chayev Odom Lasis Retzain Oviv Shebashamayim. And it definitely is Retzain Hashem, we should eat Peres Shvius. That is what they're designated for. After all, the pasuk says, "V'hoisa Shabbos la'oretz lachem la'achalo, v'achlo evyonei amecho." But it goes beyond that. Many sources in Chazal we find the concept of Kedushas Shvius. What is the basic interpretation or even translation of Kedusha? What does Kedusha mean? Kedusha is, I'm not sure I'm using the word right. Sometimes I make up words. You know, I was born in America, but I was born in a Yiddish-speaking family, and I learned in a Hasidic cheder, and you could imagine we didn't learn much about anything, and definitely English. The English I speak is not English I brought from America. I left America before my bar mitzvah. I didn't speak a proper English. So, you know, people ask me, who taught me English? I don't know. I have a maggid that teaches me English. Sometimes I make up words. Hegdish is designation. So the Gemara at the very beginning of Masechet Kedushin, Harei at mikudeshes li. The Gemara explains, why do we use illusion of Hegdish when a person is mekadesh his wife? Osela kulial mekehegdish. When you do Kedushin, your wife is prohibited on the entire world. Osela kulial mekehegdish. But Tosfos steps in and Tosfos explains, that's not pshat. Harei mikudeshes is miuchidesli, mizumenesli. Every Hegdish must have a positive meaning. Hegdish can never be only negative. Hegdish cannot be, you can't do this and you can't do that. What are you supposed to do? What is this chefza designated for? When we're dealing with the Kedushas Aguf of Karbonis, these animals, these menachas are designated Legavaya, Oilal Gabi Amizbeach. And that is why they're also Lahediyat. When you Mekadesh and Nisho, Mizumenes umiuchedes umikedeshes li, and that is the reason also La Kulial Mekehegdish. So Kedushas Shvius cannot just mean Loila Hefsid, Loila Schayra. What? Yes. One of these Peres designated for, and as a result of that designation, they're also Behefsid Ubeschayra. Hegdish Bedek Abayis is designated Lebinyan Beis Hamigdosh, and that is why Yesh Me'ile Behegdish. Kedushas Aguf is designated Lalus El Gabi HaMezbeach, Lalus Legavoya, and that is why it's also Lahediyat. This woman is designated for her husband alone, and that is why she's also a Kulial Mekehegdish. So what does Kedushas Shvius mean? No Hegdish has only negative connotations. There's no such a thing. It must be designated to some positive shimush, and that is the reason it's also. So to me, it is clear, Kedushas Shvius is Kodesh La'achila. And that is why there's a Nisa Hefsid, there's a Nisa Schayra, but it must be Mugdash L'Dovo Chiyuvi. So according to the Rambam, and according to the Chazanish Alibi the Ramban, La'ochlo is not a mitzvah asay, but Kedushas Shvius does mean something. And Kedushas Shvius means these peres are mugdash la'achilas Yisrael. It's not a mitzvah asay. According to the Rambam, it's not on the list. Even according to the Ramban. The mitzvah say is only lo lehefsid, lo leschayra, but it is clear to me that a Kodesh Baruch Hu wants Perish Shvius to be consumed by Bnei Yisrael. V'hoisu Shabbos ha'oretz lechem la'achala, v'achlo evyoynei amecha. And that is the entire concept of Kiddush. So the Rambam also doesn't bring Achilas Truma in the list of Tarei mitzvahs. But regarding Achilas Truma, the Rambam does write in the mitzvah of Achilas Kachim that Kodeshim Kanam and Truma negrorim achrei ha-mitzvah. We do not find that regarding Perish Shvius. But still, in my opinion, there is a mitzvah of Achilas Perish Shvius, not a mitzvah to say, but there is Chibo Yisera. I want to make the most powerful argument possible. Who is the Mora the Shmitta that even according to the Ramban there is no mitzvah in Achilas Perish Shvius? That's the Chazon Ish. Where's the Chazon Ish? Yud Daled Yud. The same siman in Chazon Ish, Yud Daled Daled, is an amazing chiddush of the Chazon Ish. And there are some chidushim that nobody could say besides the Chazon Ish. They have the Chazon Ish, that's trademark Chazon Ish. So the Rambam writes that we prevent non-Jews from eating Perish Shvius. And the Chazon Ish deals with the question, why? What is the justification of preventing non-Jews from eating Perish Shvius? They're hefker. They're not ours. Perish Shvius are hefker. And if it's hefker, anybody could come and take. So what issues do we have to prevent non-Jews from plucking Perish Shvius and eating them? Two different Chazon Ishes. The one I'm quoting today is the one relevant to our discussion, to our sugya. Yud Daled Daled. The Chazon Ish writes an amazing svara, which is entirely Chazon Ish. Chazon Ish writes, even non-Jews are obligated not to interfere, not to prevent Jews from fulfilling their mitzvahs. They're goyim. They don't have arvis. They bear no responsibility helping us be Mekayim mitzvahs. Kol Yisrael arevim zeh lezeh. Not non-Jews, but still, Chazon Ish writes, a non-Jew doesn't have permission to prevent a Jew from being Mekayim his mitzvahs. Quoting the exact lashon of the Chazon Ish, Hagoyim mitzuvim shelo lekapeach Yisrael b'mitzvosam, and therefore they're not allowed to eat Perish Shvius. Because if they eat Perish Shvius, Jews won't be able to eat those same Perish, and they are mekapeach Yisrael b'mitzvosam. So the very same Chazon Ish, in the very same siman, Chazon Ish writes, what permission do we have to prevent non-Jews from eating Perish Shvius? Because they are obligated to a Kodesh Baruch Hu in encouraging us, letting us, not interfering and not preventing us from being Mekayim our mitzvahs. What is the basis of this Chazon Ish? I think it's in the very first Rashi in Teres Moshe. Bereshis Boro Elakim B'Shul Yisol Shenikuracious B'Shul Torah Shenikuracious. That's the reason HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world. It's about His chosen people. It's about our mitzvahs. So the Goyim, it's not Sheva Mitzvahs B'nei Noach. But after all, Goyim are part of the world, part of creation. And they need also to do what HaKadosh Baruch Hu expects them to do. And because B'riyas Oilams Yisrael Shenikuracious B'Shul Torah Shenikuracious, Chazon Ish comes up with this amazing thought. Hagoyim mitzuvim shelo lekapeach Yisrael memitzvosam. But on the other hand, it's mefurish in Chazon Ish. If a guy eats Perish Shvius, he is mekapeach Yisrael memitzvosam. So it is our mitzvah to eat Perish Shvius. But the Chazon Ish says no, even the Ramban. So what I'm arguing is this. It's not a mitzvahs asay, but it is Ritzayin Hashem. Not only because the pasuk says va'ochlo b'yainayav, but even beyond that, it is the concept of kedushas shvius. Kedushas shvius is designation. Kedushas shvius cannot only imply loyla hefsid, loyla schayla. What? Yes. Achilas yisloy. So let me share with you a paradox that happens every Shnas Shmitta in Eretz Yisrael, and to a lesser extent also in Hilchos. And it's a painful paradox. We live in an age in which there's so much effort and so much money just to make life easy. We like an easy life. When I was a child, my mother used to be machsher oifes. She used to cut up the chickens and kasher them with salt. Nobody does that anymore. When I was young, in Beis Yankov, they taught girls how to kasher chickens. Nobody does that anymore. You know, we could afford it. This is the age of abundance, the age of plenty. And it manifests itself not only in Olam Hazeh, but also in the way we perform our mitzvahs. Nobody likes to work hard. Some people still prepare the psilas for Adlokas Ner Chanukah. My late father, Zecher Tzadik V'Rocha, till his last Chanukah, used to take cotton. And he used to take him 15 minutes every night to make the psilas, prepare the psilas. Nobody does that anymore. You know, everybody sells. Everything is ready. So thousands of people don't even bother to pour shemen zayis into the cup. Every night you have a set of cups with shemen, with psilas. When it goes out, you throw it all away. Life has become easy, and our mitzvahs are easy as well. And most people prefer Yavul Nachri, Peres Chutz La'aretz. They don't want to bother with Pach Shmitta, Hefsed. Some of them see it as a fromkeit. I think it's just people don't want to bother with mitzvahs any longer. And I see this as a big problem. We should be Mechabev Peres Shvius. This is Peres Kedoshim Shel Eretz Yisrael. And besides the fact, we need to support farmers that are shomer mitzvahs, oitze based in. But who wants to go into this, the bother of loyla schoira, loyla hefsid? We want to have the easy way with our mitzvahs. So less and less people are actually eating Peres Shvius. We're supporting the Arabs. We're supporting neighboring countries. We're supporting the Spanish and the Italian and bringing Peres from all the world. And we don't want to bother with Hefsed Peres Shvius and other halachos of Kedusha Shvius, Biur Peres Shvius, Chaval. So maybe at a future share, I have no idea what you plan. In the next few weeks, we will have a discussion about the various different options we have in it, so it's less relevant in Hilchos. So anyway, I just want to, towards the end of today's shir, I shared with you my firm opinion about Peres Shvius. It's not a mitzvah to say, but it still has chibu yisera. And that is the concept of Kedusha Shvius. Peres Shvius are kodesh la'achila. That is what they're designated for. And every Kedusha, whether it's Kedushas Karbonis or Bedek Abayis or Kedusha Isha, must have a positive connotation and not only negative ones. So Chazal darshan, coming back to the Ramban, how could one posuk be mamayit two different things? Schayr and hefsed must be two sides of the same coin. Otherwise, we cannot learn from la'achla two different halachas. There are three ways to explain the Isser of Hefsid Peiros Shvius. One way would be destroying Peiros goes against the very concept of Kedusha. Kedusha needs to be honored. Kedusha needs to be respected. There's an Isser of Bezoyin Kodshim and Bezoyin Truma. Destroying Peiros is a Bezoyin. That would be one interpretation of Isser Hefsid. And this interpretation is valid to explain the Chazon Ish. Without my Tosefis, without Chazon Ish number 2, the way everyone else understands the Chazon Ish, there is no mitzvah nechilas Peiros Shvius. So what's the Isser of Hefsid? It's not because you have a mitzvah of Achila, but Hefsid is a bezoyin. So how would we understand the Isser of Shchira? Is Shchira a bezoyin? Why would it be a bezoyin? One could argue maybe it is a bezoyin. Making business with Hegdish is not with Void Hegdish. You do business with Churim. You're not supposed to do Shchira with Kiddush. So that would be one interpretation of the Isser of Shchira and Hefsid. Interpretation number 2 would be Achila. If you destroy your Mevatel Mitzvah Achila. And that is especially reasonable according to my opinion, that whether it's a mitzvah or not, but there definitely is some level of mitzvah b'achilas Peiros Shvius, and that is Isser of Hefsid. But then we cannot understand the Isser of Shchira, because Shchira would just enhance Achila, and it's not detrimental to Achila. If we don't permit selling of Peiros Shvius, most of it will rot. Because if a man could only be malaket Peiros for him and his family, and he cannot sell, then 99% of the produce will be left on the fields and on the trees to rot for the animals, for the birds. Because why would people bother in Ktsira, Imur, everything else that is required to make Peiros Shvius available to the broad public? So Shchira just enhances Achila. So Hefsid goes against the mitzvah of Achila, but Shchira does not. In my opinion, interpretation number 3 is the right one. Hefsid and Shchira go against the mitzvah of Hefker. We have a mitzvah to be mafkir Peiros Shvius. And that is what the Torah says. Peiros Shvius are hefker. And because they're hefker, you have no rishus to destroy. You could destroy what belongs to you. That's your preference. If you're out of your mind, destroy. But you have no right to destroy what is hefker to the poor, to the needy, to the desperate. And Shchira also goes against hefker. It's not yours. How could you make profit on something that's not yours? How could you sell something that doesn't belong to you? So Hefsid and Shchira are clearly two sides of the very same coin. And the origin and the essence of the Isser Shchira and Hefsid are not based on Bezoyin Hegdish, not based on Mitzvahs Achila, but based on the concept of Hefker. So bearing in mind that we have a mitzvah to be mafkir Peiros Shvius, how could you do business and sell something that doesn't belong to you? How could you make a profit out of something that doesn't belong to you? And what reshus do you have to destroy something that needs to be left for aniyim, like leket, shikra, and peah? So my understanding of the Yisod HaHefsed, not because it's contradictory to Achila, not because it's Bezoyan Egdish, we need to explain Schor and Hefsed as being the same. Both Schor and Hefsed go against the mitzvah of Hefker Peiros Shvius, and that is my fundamental understanding. So I think today we had, as I said in the beginning of the shir, a fascinating sugyas of fascinating ideas, some chidushim in two different areas. Primarily, is there a mitzvah achila b'peiros shvius? And we also touched upon the Yisod of Hefsed. We didn't go into many details in Hefsed Peiros Shvius. Maybe we'll have other opportunities. So let me once again ask you to daven for my great and beloved mother, and I wish you all b'soros tovos. We should share Simchas HaTorah. We should share many other Simchas. I don't know whether I told you. I think I did last week that Baruch Hashem, last Wednesday, I was a Samdik in an Einikel. We have a new baby in the family. And before my mother lost consciousness, I showed her a picture and she wished me a mazel tov. And so that's Jewish life. So I wish my mother would have many, many wonderful years together with us to share many other simchas. And we should all share simchas, and we should zeicha that HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yismach Hashem b'maasav. We should be in Sameach HaKadosh Baruch Hu with our Torah, with our Avodah, and have a beautiful day.